Masculinity is an important subject. It's one that, in current state of society, is really deemed as a controversial topic. It now has a very fluid, let's say, description and definition of it. And we see, based on current social paradigms, what toxic masculinity is defined as, but not so much what real masculinity is defined as. There's a lot in the polarity movement, which is around sacred masculine, healthy masculine, and toxic masculinity, which will be different compared to what the social engineers have constructed around masculinity as well. Masculinity, in and of itself, is a natural polarity of nature. Okay, that's why men are masculine. It's an energetic source. So we look at masculinity from a couple of different angles. But firstly, we have to understand what masculinity is defined as from a toxic perspective. So we see it based on I believe it was the American Psychological Association. And a couple of the things are utterly absurd with what they define it as. That being unconditional physical toughness. I believe that men need to be tough. They should. They should have discipline. They should be able to be tough and endure hard things and develop resilience, definitely. Anti-feminist behavior is considered toxic masculinity, which means if you're a pro-feminist, you're a male feminist, which means you have typically feminine attributes, which is kind of the antithesis to masculinity in and of itself, which would actually define toxic masculinity. The absence of masculinity is what makes masculinity toxic. So we have to understand that in our society, because of the way that it has been built and developed since largely the 60s and even earlier, that masculinity has been under attack. There is a war on masculinity. Make no mistake about it. There's a war in the family. There's a war in the church. There's a war on men, especially white males. We are enemy number one at the moment. And we can sit there and we can talk about, race baiting and things like that. And it's where we're using the idea of this attack on minorities under the state of privilege. The fact that racism still gets brought into it is utterly ridiculous. And what happens is, in this current state of social programming and anti-male programming that's going on, especially amongst kids, what we're looking at is men don't know who they are anymore. They're lost. Men are afraid to speak up. They're afraid to speak up and be vulnerable at risk of losing respect. Or if they're too vulnerable, they become needy. And then what happens is they start to lose or become untethered in who they are as a masculine man. Now, a masculine man, from what we're looking at, is women are telling us that we need to be more vulnerable, more emotional, more in touch with our feelings. And they want men that feel so deeply. And I can tell you as a man, and based on what I've seen, no, that's not what women actually want. What that is a nice guy. A nice guy is someone that's going to be very emotional. He's going to not honor his needs. He's going to meet the needs of the woman, but not meet his own needs. This is the nice guy, right? This is a typical byproduct of the social conditioning that we've had from a place of anti-masculine output. So what it is with this is, if we're looking at it from the perspective of where current society is, I had an interaction with a man online, and I was talking about masculinity, and he said that boys need to be allowed to do whatever they want and just to be loved and kind of cuddled through what their experience is. This isn't masculinity. And a mate of mine commented that you just described femininity. And typically when we see, females or feminine people, when we disagree with them, they're going to say, "Who hurt you?" It's a very typical response. And this is exactly what this guy said back to my friend. He said, "Well, who hurt you?" And it's like, no one hurt us. But in a world of needing men to be more highly agreeable, what we're seeing is the de-evolution or devolution of masculinity into this overly feminine nice guy, which is, manipulative, he's cunning, he's scared to meet his own needs. In fact, he usually presents as needless and wantless and doesn't have any direction in life. He doesn't have any purpose. He doesn't have any balls, so to speak. He doesn't have the nous to sort of grip life and say, this is what I fucking want from life. He doesn't have that. And we'll typically see that these are the type of men that women want, that don't like to be confronted, that don't like to be criticized, that cannot handle conflict. The yes man is a caretaker, but he's not caring, because his caretaking is not authentic. Whereas if we look at a real masculine man, like, a real actual masculine man, he's going to tell his woman no. He's going to say no to her. He's going to have boundaries. He's going to have values. He won't tolerate disrespect. And these are really important attributes to have as men, because we have to say no to the way that the world is being run at the moment. The last line of defense is with us, is with men that are willing to stand for something, men that are willing to honor real masculine virtues, real masculine traits, to do difficult things, to develop discipline, to control and understand what their anger is about, and then channel the aggression in the right way. We see anger is kind of like the anchor to toxic masculinity, yet women that experience the same emotion, but they call it sacred rage, we see this arming of the feminine side of things being perfectly okay to do whatever we do, but when we do it, it's not okay. So as we go through this, what we have to understand is we have to understand the social programming, which is the moralistic viewpoint of it. Understand the independent notion of masculinity, which is the value-based proposition that we need to live by. We need to understand what our needs are. This is the personal attribute to the structure of masculinity and how to define it. And then what we have to look at is our boundaries of what we will and won't tolerate. Most men that are nice guys, that are yes men, that are, I don't like the term beta male, but I'm going to say beta male, the ones that are cowards, that will just bow down and be agreeable and fawn. What happens is they don't have boundaries. They don't. And when a man doesn't have boundaries, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. And then what happens from boundaries is consequences must be developed. And so when we're looking at this from this perspective of masculinity, a masculine man's going to have boundaries. He's going to say no. He won't tolerate disrespect. There are times in a relationship where disrespect can happen, and because you love someone, you care about them, it's not about being super rigid about it, but there's a limit to which you need to hit. But where we get to with this is we have to start to look at moral, which is social, and values, which are independent. Those have to they have to rule your life, and you have to live your life by these. This is what masculinity is. It's living by a code. It's living by your own code. And if something steps outside of that code, then you're going to have to make choices and decisions around which way you're going to go with that. And that's really fucking important. It's really important. We could look at morals from even a spiritual perspective. Having a godly influence in your life that you hold yourself accountable to. Men need to be accountable to other men. This is why you'll see the nice guy, they don't usually have a lot of male friends, they have lots of female friends, right? And this is something that, we have to have rules of what we don't tolerate. I don't have friends that are yes men. I don't tolerate disrespect from women. I don't, as they shouldn't tolerate it from me either, but I don't tolerate it from them. And they will test and they'll push. I've left relationships because I've been disrespected a couple of times. And I've set the rules and I said, this is how it's going to be. And if you're not willing to step up to that, then I'm out. And then they did it again, so I was out. This is the idea of real masculinity. You must respect yourself. As men, we must demand a higher presence of respect for ourselves, and thus we'll get it from other. If you don't respect yourself, the other person won't respect you, and they may not respect you, but you'll walk away so you have your respect intact. I had a great lesson from this from an ex-partner of mine, and there were multiple instances of disrespect, and I was like, I allowed it, and I taught her that it was okay, until I finally got to the point where I was like, I've set the rules, and then I said no, and then I walked away for good. And so masculinity is doing these things. It's discipline, it's structure. It's so much more than just these traits that you get in the polarity movement. And what I am bringing together is this course in order to help men do it. We're going to look at the archetypes, right? Like the King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. You can go read that book. I'm not going to be talking about those or teaching you about those. What I'm going to be teaching is the programming that drives them. the actual thing. Like you can get into your visuals of the king and the warrior and the magician and the lover, and that's fine. But what I'm going to be teaching is the programming, the real programming behind it, which is going to be running it. We're going to be looking at the nice guy. We're going to be looking at your relationship. We're going to be looking at whether you're with a woman that is agreeable or disagreeable, and looking at the structure of her in your relationship. We're going to look at building your morals, your values, your needs as well. But from here, like head, heart, balls, you have to connect all three of them, right? And we're going to look at how you're showing up in the world. Where are you being dishonest? Where are you bullshitting yourself? Where are you not respecting yourself? And this container is going to run you through that. And this is what I'm here to do. I want to help create better men. Better men become better husbands become better fathers. And we have to pick the right women for that, because you have to be the right man. Pick the wrong woman for that and your life will turn into chaos. Take it from someone that has learned the hard way through that and now wants to help men step up and do the same. So these are some of the tenets that I will be teaching in this. We'll be doing one-on-ones as well throughout the term. And what we'll be doing is teaching you how to undo your programming. We'll be teaching you how to become men, right? Real men that are a direction, like are in direction, that are purposeful, that have values, that will say no. I'm going to hold the mirror up to you that is going to be a very, very, very stark mirror. It's going to be hard for you to look at. This is not for the faint heart. I don't want little boys on this journey. I want men that are willing to become better because they want to step into fatherhood or become husbands or business owners or purpose-driven. These are the kind of men that I want. I don't want men that want to fuck around and just to be handheld in the space of going from a boy to a man. That might be part of some of you that join. I don't know. But I've done all of this, right? Except become a father. That's the next thing on my list. But the rest of it, I can teach you the mistakes that I've made and how to overcome them and transcend them to become a powerful and successful man. So I'll see you in there.